What I've discovered as we talk to people with abilities and unusual experiences is that the paranormal world is not what we think we know it to be. Yes, there are human spirits, evil entities, elementals. Yes, possibly aliens. But there are times where we will hear about entities that fall outside the spectrum of these classifications. This is one of those moments. In this episode, we have a crossover episode with past guests, Maria and Jamie. We had the idea of having them connect and maybe have some experiences match. Further learning for all of us involved. And little did I know that we would be finding out about the existence of a time spirit. Enjoy. So, Maria, hi. This is Jamie. We met Jamie also through Reddit actually, and she told us about her abilities when she was young. Jamie also told us that she met a couple of light workers actually over there in Amsterdam.
Oh, I've had a couple of brief experiences. I go to kind of paranormal fairs.
Mm. Oh
We
yeah,
have
yeah.
every once in a while here in the Netherlands, and so I've been to a couple of those as well. And so I've met a couple of light workers there. Also, I've just from through the internet, I've kind of met a few light workers as well. And I was in a group that had light workers in it, but that group turned out to be very unhealthy. So that's why I've lost contact with most people that I knew that were into the paranormal stuff.
So this is the same group that you told us that kind of didn't protect you. I mean, they didn't back you up when there was that entity fighting you, right? Is that same group,
Yes,
Jamie? Oh,
yes.
okay. I don't think we were able to talk about your being a light worker the last time we talked.
Yeah, sure. I chose that term because it seems to me that, I thought that I had to use some kind of term in order to try and present myself right in some kind of way. And I just didn't know what to choose because what I do is more like it's almost like it's adjusting according to who is needing me and for what reason. The angels is really just calling me wild card. Almost like a joker in a card game. You can put me in all kinds of different situations, and for some reason I can just do what is needed. And so I was just really thinking about which term to use, and I thought Lightworker just came the closest to
Mm.
because it's all of this being of service to the light, like this unselfish thing, and just being available to whoever might need it. I mean, some need to talk about abilities, other needs assistance with a haunting, and there's lots of different stuff. And well, I mean, working with the light, that's kind of what we do. So yeah, that's how I came to that term. I really didn't know just what else to choose. So it's so very different. Some people just need to really talk about their experiences and the life in general because they feel like no one can understand their situation and what it's like for them. And some of them might even be in some ways traumatized from their experiences. Yeah, like I said, others have dealings with hauntings or subconsciously they're being attacked perhaps. There's just so many different kinds of this, and I'm just trying to be there actually from whatever it is that they need. So I don't know if there's a specific explanation to it really as such. I mean, I had a star seed not long ago contacting me because she had been struggling her entire life thinking that she was just hallucinating, and really just most of her life she was just like felt completely crazy. And the classical, she when she tried to talk to her family about it, they said, go to a therapist, and she ended up with a disorder being called schizophrenic. And I was just looking at her like, you're not schizophrenic, you know, because it was just that obvious to me, even as I saw her, it was almost like her eyes was just lighting up really like starlight or something. So I had no doubt, and it just bursted out of me like that. And that was just from a human point of view, like a random meeting on the street. And
Yeah.
she was asking me stuff because she was some kind of sales person, whatever. And all of a sudden, the conversation just took a turn. And I think that is when the light, perhaps you could say, it just goes in and just starts to interfere with stuff. And like, we're not here to talk about that because this is actually not a random meeting. You're supposed to talk about this. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, people just start to talk about that. And it just blurted out of me, you're not schizophrenic. I mean, I don't know what they have told you, but that's not the case. Just like, what? And she actually ended up being so moved rather what I'm connecting to, that she was just all in tears and like, oh my God, I've always felt that way, but no one has ever told me that. And then she could actually move on with her life, because I'm not crazy. I'm just a star seed. I'm from another planet. That kind of makes sense. So it's so different. Really, it is that different. And I was just going shopping here, but yeah.
That sounds so similar to just to have the listeners understand. We have this chat group with Maria. Jamie, if you want to join, just let us know. But we have this chat group with Maria, and we recently talked to this guy in Canada who had experiences, and he was really interested in joining a community that could understand some of the things that he experienced. So I said, okay. And the things he said to you, Maria, after you talked to him, I mean, after you posted your observations and what you felt, were things that he didn't even tell us. And we were really surprised that he opened up to you that with regards to what he feels and what he experienced, like that lightning in while he was flying a chopper, I think, or a plane. Yeah. So we didn't know about that, and I mean, you helped him open up, and I'm very thankful that you helped him with that.
Mm.
Similar to what you did to the star seed, it just all came out for him.
Yeah, and I'm not really even aware exactly what's going on myself,
I find a lot of what you've said so relatable, like incredibly relatable.
Okay, well, I'm glad, I'm glad. And most of the time, I'm not even humanly aware exactly myself of what is going on. I'm just always, I can feel, okay, something is happening now, and I'm really just trying to go with it, because by now I kind of have that experience, like long-term over life, that I need to just give in to whatever it is, and just kind of follow it, just go with it. And then all kinds of stuff just start to happen. It was the same thing with this lightning guy,
Yeah.
and I was just writing what seems like that just came to me, but at the same time, I'm trying to also be kind of rational about it, because, well, first of all, I've always been like that. I read all of the original Sherlock Holmes stories when I was 8, I think. And to me, it made a lot of sense that he was solving mysteries in the ways that he was. And I mean, that shouldn't kind of make sense to an 8-year-old, I have this idea that being rational about stuff is important, actually, to ability people, because it's so easy to just go too much with it and just like
Oh yeah.
dive into something and like, oh, I'm seeing spirits everywhere, and it's just taking off like So that was why I was also trying to like, okay, let's see, can we ask him some questions? And from what he answers to that, I will kind of know by instinct more or less where he's in and all of that. And he answered exactly as
Yes.
I was expecting him to, really.
When you asked him about his sister, I felt, oh, does he have a sister? Because the whole time we were talking, he didn't mention a sister. He always mentioned his brother. Does he have a sister? And then you were right. He did have a
Yeah,
stepsister. He mentioned that he did have a stepsister.
yeah, it's just weird. I don't know if I misread something or whatever, but it was just so weird to me because I had a vision that I actually saw a girl like maybe 9 or 10 years old laying in her bed, I think. And she also had that electrocuted kind of stuff going on. And so I was kind of wondering, well, that must be his sister, right? Because they're like sharing abilities. But if he doesn't have a sister, he only has a stepsister. But you see, the DNA, it doesn't really work exactly as people think it does. So even if it's just his stepsister, they might actually be sharing abilities, because we, to us, were like thinking, well, they're not sharing DNA, but that might not actually be true, because it's the spirit that is the holder of the actual DNA, and whatever that holds get projected into the physical body. So you could be in two different families and sharing the same DNA, because it's in the spirit. So
Actually, Maria, I also asked Jamie here to join us because she had a very different. Again, she probably has more, but we don't know all of it. But Jamie told us about this strange experience where, Jamie, would you like to tell that story where you kind of saw this being that you couldn't understand? I mean, we think it was a interdimensional being, but
Yeah, so we had with that group that I was talking about earlier, we had they kind of they helped with awakenings in people to kind of open you up to spirituality. And after I experienced that, I was kind of I was sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden it was like one of the walls just disappeared and turned into this kind of icy nature landscape, and this being just came walking through and just made sounds that I can't even describe it. It wasn't even something that I can't even really imagine the way it sounded like. It was all kinds of sounds mixed into one at the same time, but it wasn't like mixed. It was very strange to experience. It was like the sound was constantly morphing somehow, and so this being huge, almost square features in a lot of things, really big eyes, just came and kind of looked at me and at the person sitting next to me, and just kind of said something that sounded sort of confused, and eventually it just sank back into the wall and everything was gone. And I was like, I asked the person sitting next to me, like, did you see that? And they said, no, I didn't notice anything. And this is someone that was sorts of spiritually aware of things. It's kind of difficult relationship, but
okay, is there any way you can try and perhaps describe its looks or something?
it was kind of greenish gray, but it was it wasn't like, it's kind of like, oh, actually I think my blankets come pretty close. So it was kind of like this color, and they it was just very almost very straight shoulders, and then went down very square kind of head with rounded, it's not pointy, but kind of very flat top, very flat sides, and then kind of rounded, and just huge, well, kind of black eyes. But it didn't look like the typical, like, the way I'm describing it makes it sound very much like an alien, like the gray people that people describe when they've been abducted or something, but it wasn't like that at all to look at. I can't quite describe it. Um, yeah, it looked, yeah, I really can't describe it. Almost like I guess a hairless yeti.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that would look like.
Mm.
So it's really difficult to describe, but
Kind of a clawish hand or feet, or like more like fingers. And do you have any idea? Did you see hands and feet?
very very long and very rounded fingers.
Very rounded. Okay, that's a new one. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I also because I'd had some experience with darker entities at that point before that. So I at first I thought, like, is this some kind of demon or but I just couldn't recognize it, and I've never seen anything since that matches. And I see a lot. I see a lot of different things, and I've never seen anything like that thing before or since. So it was very weird.
But did you have any sense of feel like negative or positive, or was it just there? Or
It's just it felt really old and wise, and it was confused by what it was seeing, but it did also kind of have an understanding of what was happening, it seemed. But I for the life of me, I couldn't understand it.
That was the only time you experienced it, right? And saw that being. That's the only time that happened,
Yeah,
right?
that's the only time that happened. I mean, I've seen lots of other stuff throughout my life, several things that can be described as angels and demons, and even something that in that group that I talked about was called the time spirits. The time spirits, there was this it almost looks like a kind of gray grim reaperish being, and it was very big powerful entity that would kind of help out, but also it had a very very strong personality. That's actually the thing that took over when I got into the argument with that person, because it didn't like certain people, and it was very it could be the first time I met it, actually it literally it wanted, it was focusing on my on the person sitting next to me, and so it felt that I was an intrusion, and it tried to kind of choke me. So I was scared to go anywhere near it for a while, and then eventually it kind of warmed up to me, because it realized I could talk to it, and I could kind of hear what it was saying, and I could kind of translate to other people, and then it was like, well, okay, I guess you're useful, so now I'm just going to channel through you. Basically, it was a very unique experience.
Yeah.
It worked with the group a lot, and but it was very harsh in things. It didn't like to um be subtle. No, I'm not sure if it didn't respect me. I don't think it did a lot, but like the argument that it got into with someone else, was complaining that they couldn't find balance in their life, and just I've had spirit guides that'll
Yeah.
be harsh, be incredibly harsh, and be, well, like, of course you're struggling with this because you're not living your life right, but this was something else. He really went just on full, like,
Yeah.
he basically just said to this person, like, you're being an idiot. You have such potential for the spiritual, and you're wasting it going into management with your job, and it's killing your soul, and that's the reason that you're not in balance. And so so stop complaining and start acting on what you already know that you have to do. And it came out it came out very harsh, apparently, because all of a sudden everyone was fighting, and I was in the middle of this, and I just snapped out of my channeling, and I don't really know what happens when I'm channeling. So all of a sudden, I snap out of my channeling, and someone is screaming just at my face. So that scared me so much. That's why I left. I never went back because I was like, oh no, that was so nuts. That really broke that trust bond for me. That I was in this very vulnerable space, and then all of a sudden, I kind of woke up to someone screaming at me. So no, that was not. But very interesting spirit. But again, it's very different from the time that I had that thing coming through the wall. It's not comparable. It's I'm also not doing a very good job of describing things at the moment, but maybe with some time and
Maybe Maria could have some insight. I'm not sure if Maria, if you have, if is that the first time you've heard of something like that also? That experience or that being?
Well, the being in the ice kind of landscaping, for some reason, I have some kind of deep feel that I'm trying to kind of place. It's kind of like I feel like I know that they're there, and they have been there for, like, I don't know, long time in 3D terms. Um, I can't say I have encountered them per se, but I don't know. It's just I have that feel like I know them already. It is a kind of weird feel, and to me, it makes perfect sense with the icy landscape and the ancient kind of wise kind of feeling. That just makes perfect sense to me for some reason, but I'm not really sure how to explain that. But yeah, that could be some kind of interdimensional stuff, like they have been here for so long, perhaps, like observing and maybe assisting in some kind of way. But what particularly are they doing? I'm not really sure about that. But they almost feel like some kind of guards or guardians, perhaps, or something.
yeah, I can
That's a feel that I get, like.
because it felt very at that time. It just there was such clarity with it and such. I I I I got that same kind of sense that you're getting of it. So that's very interesting because I couldn't I also couldn't quite place what it was, and I definitely couldn't understand it because that was the
Mm,
thing that because I was with someone, they were kind of focusing on, well, what did they say?
mm,
And like I said, it was like hearing an A, an O, an R, and several other sounds just all at the same time in one sound that so I was like, well, I for the life of me, I couldn't try and describe what they said to me or what they were, but I did definitely get that same feeling. So I find it very interesting that you're kind of picking up on that as well.
and I think that that kind of sound make perfect sense because they can't speak. I don't even think that they can convert necessarily to our language if they want to communicate for some reason. I think one would have to somehow like be attuned to not just picking up those sound vibrations, but also be capable of like translating it somehow, deep in mind and heart. Uh, from what I feel, I really don't think they're capable of per se talking as in a language. They can't try to kind of use the language way that we have and try to copy that. I don't even think they're capable of doing that. That's not the feel that I get. So that would make perfect sense if you're just hearing all kind of sound vibration. That is how they communicate. I have seen something like that, but I don't think it was exactly like that because it had claw-like hands. and they were working with down in the earth. But that being, that's to itself in some way. But I think it would take us really knowing about exactly what they're doing here. I think that would take us knowing quite a lot more about our planet and our history and why we're actually here. Because I think if it's some kind of guardian, it's surely it's here for a reason. It's just as a visitor. But our history has been so manipulated, like beyond belief. And we just, from our known history, even when we have found that Sumerian stuff and Göbekli Tepe and what it's called and all that, even in our knowledge, like included that's maybe half of it or something. Yeah, really, we're getting closer, but we're nowhere near close enough to grasp all of what is actually going on. And well, I would just say, Jamie, if you have the possibility of communicating with that being again, I would definitely encourage you to do so, because I have a feel that that being definitely knows a lot. And as some kind of guardian, it's here for a reason. Yeah, it feels very special, like they were here from the beginning or something, and perhaps going back and forth in those interdimensional funnels, perhaps to like check out what's going on and stuff.
Well, I'll be very honest with you. It's kind of difficult because I've had some with that group that I was with. I actually have some questions for you as well, if you would maybe recognize certain stuff from that as well. Because well, we focused on a lot of different things with that group, but like I said, it wasn't the healthiest for me because I was very much um not deliberately, definitely not deliberately, but I was very much being ended up kind of being used for my ability without kind of regard for my own safety. Because I've also been to a different, I'm not sure if it was dimension where there was just this there was just color and blackness, and so intense that I just can't describe what it was like. It was what I imagine it to feel like if I were floating in outer space without stars. It was very intense, and it's scared me a lot when I was at that age that I was doing that. I've kind of moved past that, but because I have some negative associations with spirituality, especially in recent years, unfortunately, I've kind of closed myself off to things as kind of a self-protection kind of way. I am looking into being a bit more open again, but it's kind of tricky because it's got some traumas associated with it.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that's one of the reasons why I've always been very careful about connecting to any kind of group thing, because to me it just seems like it's so easy for stuff to just tip out of balance and just go into something negative or extreme or something that it absolutely shouldn't be.
Exactly. That's one of the things that I recognize.
So I've always had that instinct, like "Ew."
Yeah, that's one of the things that I definitely recognized from what you said, that that kind of stuff can get way out of hand. And
Yeah.
I I myself am someone who very much appreciates science and rationale, and for me to be pushed that far out of my comfort zone and into that kind of space where rationality was kind of left on the wayside, it brought me to a space where I really didn't feel comfortable with, and I still kind of have trouble, returning there again, because it feels I associate it with being that unhinged, and totally out of control of the spiritual side of
Mm.
things.
Yeah, that's just, it's kind of sad, I think, actually, when that happens, because they should be teaming up in order to everyone kind of like doing better, or just at least stabilizing and sharing with each other, right? And it's just sad when it just gets out of hand like that.
Jamie, did you have more questions? I mean, yeah, you said you would have questions for Maria about. Were you going to ask about that dimension you were in, or something else?
Something else, because that group, that's something that always kind of stuck with me, and I feel like I've recently heard it or seen it somewhere else. And because because I mean, I was able to tell you about that being that I saw, and you immediately kind of picked up on that same vibe. So I was kind of like wondering, this group that I was in, they had this higher entity patron that they would kind of there was an angel associated with it as well. And so I've always kind of wondered, is it just humanity messing up something that is genuinely meant for good, or is it something that is just completely misguided from the foundation up?
I think that's a very quick answer, and the answer to that is yes. Especially in that thing group, whatever you want to. You told me that kind of what you were calling like time spirit or something. I would say, and I have dealt with some entities that can be a bit harsh, not because they are negatively harsh, but just because they're very honest. Is being like guided or I don't like to say controlled, but some kind of controlled by any kind of entity like that, I would immediately walk out. Definitely. Because that can just go so quickly wrong in so many ways. Should there ever be like some kind of higher being that is trying to like lead a group, you so sure of that entity, like for sure that you can turn your back on it, or say no, or say shut up to it, or whatever, and it will still love you, and that spirit or entity or whatever you described to me, that doesn't sound like that was what it was doing. And you kind of snapping out of the channeling by someone screaming in your head, and that's definitely not unconditional love, however you want to put that. I can understand that you have.
No, it's kind of tricky to explain, because that time entity actually was something that was separate from that group, because that group followed this spirit called Ishnata, and this time entity just kind of eventually became curious as to what was going on there, and he was kind of worried about some stuff, and so eventually he just kind of started channeling through me and started saying, I don't know exactly what he told his group, but then eventually the leader of the group, that woman, she was channeling Ishnata, or a protection spirit that Ishnata had given to her. And so that was so she was the one physically screaming at me, because her bear spirit became very protective.
Okay. So can you perhaps describe this Ishnada?
It was kind of described as being, it being very closely tied to Elohim, which is, I believe, the Jewish name for God, and it was the thing that bound it. Ishnata was kind of described as being bound to both the earth and the eternal love, the eternal universe. beyond. It was kind of described as a bridge, as a, a, a way to channel. It was said that he would help kind of channel what was going on there. So it's kind of difficult to put into words because it's a long time ago, to be honest. It's I think it's like 5 years ago that this happened. So yeah, I was curious if this entity, this Ishinata, is kind of
Mhm.
ringing bells for you, that you can have a sense for it or not.
Okay, something like that.
Ishinata was kind of like an emissary, or kind of like a bridge between the earth and the
So
spiritual.
so Ishnata was the one supposed to be the patron of the group,
Yes,
or
I
not?
guess you could say
Oh,
that.
okay. Very similar to some D&D class, right?
A warlock, yeah.
A warlock.
Okay, okay. Well, well, you see, that's kind of oh yeah, well, yeah, I'm being careful with them because Elohim is actually the Anunnaki. You remember seeing that video about Elohim,
Yes,
but
yes.
it's the Elohim and
Mhm.
it's a quaint to Anunnaki.
Yes.
So, and it's just that, of course, there are positive Anunnakis, positive Elohims, right?
Mhm.
But the thing is that there seems to be more who is on the negative side, and they're
Mm.
part of all of this agenda stuff, trying to run the entire planet into their gain.
Yes.
So personally, I'm just being very careful with anything that has Elohim, Anunnaki stuck to it. So could this Ishnada being be some kind of positive? I mean, yes, there's a chance that she could, but I just think that the chances are bigger that she's not, that she's a deceiver, actually, to be honest. And then if she's presenting itself as an entity like nobody, I think that's very interesting because they're all um, they're all aliens.
Mhm.
There could be, again, of course, some of them that is um, not currently in a physical body. A lot of them is actually what we call angels, um, from different species. Oh, I mean, I would be so careful. I've even encountered some of them. One was also female. She addressed herself in a sound vibration that would be somewhere going to Hashana or something like that.
Mhm.
And even though she really feels very positive and she's relating, well, yes, I am an alien crossbreed and stuff like that, even though that she is telling me all of that, I'm still being careful, you know.
Yeah.
I don't mind listening to her and talking to her and stuff like that, but I'm absolutely not letting myself being guided of that in any way. I'm just taking her communication into consideration more like that, you know. So having an entire group trusting such a being, you know, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me. I don't like it.
Well, it didn't feel right to me either, so that's why I left.
Yeah, I think that was a very wise decision, really.
I think Jamie also mentioned to us that one of the activities they did was they would correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, that you would have one of your members get channel a demon,
Yes.
and the others would channel light beings and encircle this demon and question. Is that correct, Jamie?
Uh, yeah, kind of.
For information, is that what they did?
That's the thing about all these people being very uh open. There wasn't really a very much. It wasn't very filtered. So sometimes something negative would come, and then I'm not quite sure if it was planned or not, but something negative would sometimes show up, and there would just kind of be this tension, and we would all all kind of be asked to keep it contained, and that then they would ask questions, they would have conversations with it, and kind of eventually they would banish it out. But it was very it was very intense, and it really was my kind of thing. So I'm very content leaving all of that in the past, if you guys are all right with that.
Yes, okay. Sorry to bring it up. Sorry to bring
No,
it up.
no worries. I yes, I think it's well, a lot of my peak experiences have come around that time, because this was someone that was also just a very good healer and Reiki practitioner. And so, in a lot of ways, there was a lot of good stuff going on, but there was also some stuff that was just so far off the map for me that just didn't make sense, that it wasn't a good fit in the end. I don't think these were bad people, or that they, but I think that certain things that were done were just not done in a way that's quite safe for someone like me, or someone who's very sensitive.
We've heard Maria and Jamie. I'm not sure if you would like to share or if you've experienced this. We recently got to not have a guest, but listen to the sensitives here in the Philippines who they've seen these things. I haven't actually heard of it before. Seen these things they would describe as fallen angels, and they would describe them as hooded beings, and they're very tall, very as tall as a building or as tall as a house. And when you come into their presence, you feel like kneeling. That's what they said. You have that urge to kneel for some reason. And again, they seem to congregate in places where there were a lot of deaths. So there is this island here in the Philippines, Corregidor Island, and during the Second World War, a lot of people died in that place. And while they were there, they saw a couple of these beings. I'm not sure. Have you encountered any of these? I mean, for them, it's fallen angels. But again, you could have a different interpretation of these hooded, tall creatures.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, in my experience, when they are hooded and not really showing themselves, that's always a no-no for me. Because pure light beings that is going by unconditional love, they are always interested in trying to present themselves. So with things, whatever they are, hooding themselves up and trying to not really show themselves, that's to me that's never a good sign, really. But it's actually a subject that I'm still looking into, because it seems like you said, it seems to be like when there has been a lot of deaths, or really like people perhaps have been slaughtered, or in some way like really wronged, that these huge dark entities, like, yeah, big as a house, they seem to turn up, and they seem to be like walking around the whatever area they're connected to, presenting themselves with a big authority, like, I'm just the ruler of this place, like I'm the king of this
Yes.
place.
Yes.
And I'm not really sure what's up with that yet, but it could be, this is what I'm pondering about still. It could be that some entity, or perhaps being, but I'm thinking more entity for some reason, that it has picked up all of the negative and the bad vibes that is in that area, and it has literally figured out how to use all of those bad vibes and perhaps stuck spirits and stuff like that, and taking hold of all of that, almost like taking the spirits captive, actually have any true authority, but they're really just taking what is there, like someone taking a slain kingdom and just going, this is fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they are trying to put out to people, like, I'm the ruler of this place because I have whatever, 500 spirits, negative vortex, blah, 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 at my disposal. So, if you don't behave or you blink wrong, I'll just zap you or whatever, Especially in North America, it seems like they have a lot of these entities, and some of them are referring to them as watchers. Some ability people and some legends around the with the natives. If you combine those, it's again, yes, slaughter and a lot of death and stuff like that. And some people are saying, oh, but the land is cursed. And I'm not so sure the land is actually cursed per se. I think it is this whatever entity big as a house that has just taken rule of all of those energies and that place, and they are administering something that could feel like people, because whatever they are trying to build up of positive, they have like a ton of bad luck. The roof keeps breaking and all kinds of weird stuff. And so then, and they move out of that area to try and start somewhere else. I just have this feel that it's those entities, whatever they are, that it's actually causing it. But I'm still looking into it. That would be, really nice to hear more about, to see if maybe we can unravel whatever yet that has figured out a way to get rid of these things. So it could kind of be interesting to know more about, in the way of maybe getting rid of them somehow.
Jamie, for you, have you encountered any of these elements or?
Well, it's quite possible I have. I mean, that's the for me. I've seen a lot of different things in my life. I've experienced a lot of different things, because basically I've spent 8 years of my life living with someone who himself was so negative that he would attract any amount of things, and any amount. Like I've had all kinds of things be attracted to him, and come and have a look, or and this goes from ghosts to all kinds of beings. And just we were two very sensitive people living in a house, and it was just a horrid combination. So it's quite possible, because it feels very familiar, but I wouldn't be able to say for certain.
Maybe we can make the topic a bit lighter. Maria, would you like to tell us about? I remember you have stories about your children growing up and finding out that they had these same gifts as you.
All five of them have ability in their special kind of constellation. We're not necessarily doing stuff or picking up stuff in the exact same way. Some of them are actually, well, I have, especially my two oldest sons, that is 20 now and 15. Currently, they're going like, I see it like almost like their mind is trying to kind of like fight itself. It's kind of sad, really, in some ways, because if they think they're seeing or experiencing something, there's a, oh, but that's just my mind. This just my psyche. It's just my eyes playing tricks on me, because of course there's no such thing. And I'm just like, oh my God, now again, because I was like, if you guys could remember what happened when you were children, I mean, but 3D manipulated world, it happens temporarily that the ability is kind of quieted down for some years, because of that. And usually what I find is that later on it takes some kind of jump start of a kind, like a serious haunting or a serious attack or something that just can't be explained, but can like be felt as, whoa, this I don't know what happened, but that was real, to kind of reawaken that, and like penetrating their mind, like wake up, because when they were small, I mean, yeah, they were talking to their guardian angels. They were talking to ghosts. They were seeing ghosts. The one who is 15 now, when he was so sensitive, it was amazing, really. Even if I had him like really in a deep sleep in the stroller, and we were going out for some shopping or whatever, and maybe I locked the stroller just for maybe 30 seconds to go get some milk or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
5 steps away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, well, that's okay because he's in such a deep sleep. If people came closer than about 3 steps within of the stroller, no matter how fast he was sleeping, he would wake up immediately and just sounded seriously like a car
Yeah.
alarm in baby mode, like just screaming and help his head off, like danger, danger,
Yeah.
danger,
Yeah.
danger, danger. And I was just observing this and going, how the heck did he even know? He was that fast asleep, I could even touch him, and he didn't notice anything. And someone that he's not seeing or anything is approaching the stroller just because they wanted perhaps a grocery that was just by the stroller or something, and he was just screaming his head off like a bear was attacking him or something. It was ludicrous, really.
Yeah.
And when he was about 10 or 12 months, we were living in an apartment, but that was a friendly ghost, you could say, that had this friendly ghost. Sure enough, as soon as he got old enough that I could understand what he was trying to communicate to me, he was communicating that I was a person sitting by our dining table. And physically, there was no one there, but I knew that the guy was sitting there having his coffee because that was kind of one of the rituals that he liked to do when he was physically alive. So I knew that he was there, but I had made like no indication to my son that that was the case. But he was just old enough to like point and tap me and point again and go, mom, mom, man, mom, man, like, and pointing and looking over to that exact chair, just not just the area, but the exact chair, like he was seeing someone that was actually there. Oh, I have so much of that kind too. One time he is the same son. He was about, I'm thinking 4 or 5 or something, no, more like 4 or something like that, when he was just fetching me in the kitchen like, mommy, 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 you gotta come, you gotta come. And I was like, ugh, now what? Making dinner, what is going on? And so it's just like almost like dragging me, pushing me into him and his sister's room, to the window, and he's like, look, 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 standing on one of his kids' furniture. And I'm looking out the window, and I mean, yeah, it had that sad, abandoned something kind of set up outside, but I wasn't particular things to just come drag me off of dinner. So I was not
Mm-mm.
really paying attention either, So I
Mm-mm.
was just like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And he just kept pointing and like said to me, like, mom, are you seeing that? Those people or something like that. And again, I was looking back and forth, like, what are you talking about? And then when I looked out again, I sort of started to get the feel that, yeah, there actually is somebody there. But I wasn't getting any visual. But apparently he was, because then he was telling me that they were children and they were very wet, and that they were going around like kicking up leaves, and they were being very sad because they couldn't find their mommies. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And it started to become a bit clearer for me but I didn't get an entirely visual. I felt more like the wet part
Yes.
and the sad part of it. I was asking him something. I can't remember exactly how I phrased it, but I was asking him if he thought that they were like actually alive, like in a body, or if it was some other kind of present. I can't remember exactly how I put my words, but it was clear to me that he was aware that they didn't have a body, but also he was aware that they were still there, and he was kind of not getting it. And he was frustrated and alarmed and saddened about them not being capable of finding their mom. And he was so sad, he started to having tears in his eyes and all that. So I was just trying to think rapidly, like, okay, so how can we kind of get this fixed and get this settled down, whatever it is that he's experiencing exactly. So I said to him, well, you can tell them to follow the light, to follow the bright starlight, because if they follow the light, it will be possible for them to find their mommies. And for some reason, it was like he just knew that what I was telling him was right, because he was like, yeah, yeah, we can do that. Like, then he was had a shine to his eyes, like, oh my God, yeah, why didn't I think of that?
Mm-mm.
Kind of
Yeah.
and a shine in his eyes, and apparently he did so, because however he was communicating with them, I could at least like observe him and watch him kind of like communicating, but not with words. It was just in his facial expression and in his energies that he was clearly communicating with someone. And now he was putting this kind of happy message to them, like, oh, you can go by the brilliant starlight, you can go look, you can go find your mommies, like that. And I could see how happy it was making him. And after perhaps a couple of minutes or so of this, then he was like, oh, it's okay now that they went looking for the mommy's mom. I could just sense that kind of peace and relief coming over him. Like it was okay now, because now they had started to follow that diet. And that was a huge experience. He was like, I don't know, four and a half. I
Yes.
mean, and he was helping guiding souls. I'm like,
Yes. Mm-mm.
whoa. But still the whole rational kind of thing. So I'm kind of like, okay, I'm looking up the area that he was looking at, just out of curiosity and rational thinking, kind of. And I found older newspaper clippings that in that particular lake, 3 kids had actually drowned. And there was just no doubt in me that's what he had seen. So yeah, it's like it can be so strong in them, but it could also be very subtle, and you're not really knowing what's going on. That's why I'm always saying to people, if you're having doubts, make them draw, and don't tell them to draw anything specific, just make them draw. Because I've noticed that often the kids seems to like, perhaps subconsciously, to put some of their experiences in their drawings, and they just don't know exactly themselves what it is. They're just putting it down, and that makes it a little bit easier as an adult, right?
They say you don't need to see a ghost to see it. I mean, you don't have to see it in your front of you. Sometimes you just
Yeah,
feel it's there, right? So I know. I don't
yeah.
know.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
There's many type of sites. To me, I usually describe it as having perhaps 5 or 10 different set of glasses, and then I'm changing glasses. If I can't see it, what seems to me to be physical, then I start to change glasses, and I keep changing glasses until I hit a glass that when I put it on, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that was something. Yeah, okay, got it now. I think it's kind of like tuning into a particular radio station that you don't really know where it is, and you don't know exactly what you're looking for. You just know for sure that it's there. So you keep turning the knob and scan for the radio channel because you have that feeling. I know it's there, and so you just keep turning it until you can just feel and hear, okay, now I'm hitting something, this is it. And from there, does that make sense too?
Yes, that makes so much sense. It's again similar to what sometimes Jamie told us about, because Jamie could see auras. She could see colors around people also. Am I correct, Jamie? Correct me if I'm wrong. I
No,
mean,
yes,
yeah.
yes, I can. I mean, it's just well, my thing is more similar to synesthesia, where your senses are crossed with each other. So I guess sixth sense. I guess that kind of that feeling that that you describe. You know something's there. For me, that turns into something visual instantly.
Yeah.
Can I ask both of you? We had a listener, we had a guest who said when she is experiencing something, when she knows there's something around her, everything goes silent. That's her cue to know that it's either a spirit or an elemental or an entity near her. Everything goes silent. Have you heard of anyone having that ability or that experience as well?
I personally, I haven't, but I just don't know enough. I I don't know enough people that have this kind of thing to have a decent comparison because it sounds logical to me. So there must be other people that experience that as well, apart from her.
It's the first time for me because it's the first time for me to hear someone describe that experience also. When she describes it, it's like a horror movie that everything goes silent before. That's how she knows that there's something nearby and she has to look for it. I don't know why she has to look for
Well,
it.
I can absolutely relate to that. It was like that for me in the beginning of my 20s, like 20 to 23, I think. I also had that weird kind of feel that everything was all of a sudden going eerie silent. Really, like you would be capable of hearing a pin drop or something, and I was alone, no matter if I was alone or between like on a street or something. And with that came like some kind of feel inside of my body, like when you're taking a deep breath, almost like like a pleasant or some kind of like rush from a deep breath and into the stomach, together with that silence. And yeah, then all of a sudden something would pop up, it seemed, either visually or audio or whatever, something. So that is how I figured out to try and be alert to that something was going on. That was exactly because it started with that. And nowadays that seldom happens. It's almost like if something is just stepping in, I'm just like more or less immediately picking up. But I think that's just the natural growth of things.
I'd like to segue to our to the things you send us on our WhatsApp group. Maria's been sending us these some YouTube links to this guy who channels messages from the Pleiadians. So when I asked, I asked the same thing to Jamie also. When I asked if she noticed the shift in the frequencies the start of the year, and again there was scientifically it was said that Earth's axis moved, and now that it's so timely, Maria, that what day is it today? It's May 29, 3 days after supposedly the start of May 26, when the upgrade was expected. I'd like to
Mhm.
check up on you. How are you dealing with it, or are you feeling anything different, or?
Well, I feel like everything is kind of wonky funky at the moment, and I don't really know exactly what to make of it as it is now, because sometimes I can feel like pretty hard, actually, like my arms are being pulled on. It's almost like I feel like I have some kind of energy on my forearms that seems to be either just very vibrating, and sometimes even like almost like I have an elastic rubber band down into the core of the earth from my arms. And that's really weird, and it's been going on for quite some time, about a year, I guess. But now it's just like intensifying, like I can really feel that it's there. And if I just kind of briefly remember it in my mind somewhere, then instantly that's just turning on again, that feel. If I try to go with a certain feeling in hopes to maybe make it manifest or something, if I'm trying to manifest something, I also feel that as becoming much more physical now. And I have just lost a sense of time. That's completely gone for me. Usually people say like in somewhere inside of them, they have like kind of an internal clock kind of feeling. I have always struggled with that. I've always had just a tiny little bit of that, but now it's like gone. So time of day and dates and stuff like that is completely messed up for me. Like I have no idea. I have to look out for the sun and stuff like that, and look at my
To
phone.
know what time it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jamie, have been feeling anything different? I mean, I'm trying to ask the sensitives and the ability people out there. Have you been feeling anything different ever since the? I mean, it was during the blood moon. I think it started during the blood moon.
Well, I've definitely had a lot of um, synchronicities, and definitely I'm not sure if it's my spirit guides, or something else, but I've been hit hard with some pretty personal stuff.
Okay.
I've had stuff from the past really pop up again, even like physically around me like that. Certain names will keep popping up, or certain I on the day of the blood moon I had a really bad migraine, and yeah, so I have had some weird stuff happening to me. I wasn't quite sure why that was, but it makes sense to hear it now, because I definitely try and tune a lot of this stuff out. Definitely at the moment, with with just trying to pick up my normal life, and kind of go down that path. But I am still sensitive. I mean, I still see stuff constantly around me. It's just that I'm actively trying to tune stuff out.
Okay. Because there's supposedly well, from the stuff Maria's been showing us, and again, I know you try to think more scientifically, Jamie. So, but from the stuff Maria's been sharing with us, there's supposed to be the Earth. Maybe you could explain it better, Maria.
Yeah, sure. But exactly what is it that is that the ascension
The
or?
ascension, yes, the
Okay.
ascension.
Yeah, just remember that that is how I see it. It's not, and some of the terms, sometimes I even have to create some terms myself, because I can't find anything that matches. So, but what I'm seeing is that cosmos, and that is of course includes the earth. It's almost like you could imagine, per se, a huge quantum field, like huge. And that is almost like an onion with a middle, and then layers and layers and layers. And so the dimensions start from within the core, and then it goes out like in layers. And the same thing is happening with galaxies, solar systems, planets, even humans. We all have that onion kind of thing where you could say a human is like the core is the physical body. That is the most compressed kind of material, so it becomes what we call physical. And so from that, according to our evolutionary level, we are capable of, perhaps not in body, but at least in mind and in spirit, to connect with other dimensions, like shift dimensions within our quantum field. And the Earth has, as a planet, is also like a living entity, and that has its own quantum field and also its dimensionary evolution and development. And so what many are picking up currently is that the growth of the planet's dimensionary level, currently the planet is, perhaps you could say, growing into fourth dimension. And as we are only aware usually, like in history and science and what is being told to us, we're used to like, well, 3 dimensions, that's kind of it, right? Some mathematicians on a professor level, they have in mathematic indications that we might have as much as 9 dimensions as far as they can calculate so far. So the process of this planet physically, with the physical, it is growing into the 4th dimension. It's a process. And I think the process, it kind of started what we would say some years ago, but that was like in the tiny. And with this full moon now, it's like, okay, now we have actually taken a step. But still, after this full moon, again, there's a process. And I think last when I looked up, I can't remember for sure, but I looked it up some days ago, that within this year, we actually have several full moon eclipses. I think it's even 4 full moon eclipses in this one year. I'm not sure that I'm remembering that correctly, but I think it's actually 4. And I think it was in 2020, we had 2 full moon eclipses. And I think it was also actually 2 solar eclipses. So sometimes you can even see, and now you're telling me like the Earth has tilted a bit more on its axis. I mean, some stuff, if we bother to try and look and see what's happening, some stuff we can actually tell by the planet's physical movement and what is going on in our solar system and stuff like that, because we can find these indicators physically that something is changing, and you have probably noticed that more and more people are reporting about like glimpses in time. They are losing. I have tried that myself, actually. I think it was as much as almost, I think it was 5 hours, if I remember correctly, that just like that, it vanished. It's just, it felt to me like 5 or 10 minutes. And I was like, and I was actually that day together with all of my kids, and it was all of us. We were just going like, what just happened? Because 5 hours seems to just like disappear in maybe 5-10 minutes. That's what it's felt like. And we all agreed on that. That was so weird, because I'm like, 5 kids and me, that's 6 person. 6 people in the same apartment, and we're like, we just lost 5 hours.
And you're all sensitive.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, some activated and some trying to
Yeah.
no, no, yeah, well, that will smarten up sooner or later, it's just a question of time, really.
Maria, it's so funny because
Mm?
just if I'm not mistaken, yesterday or the other day, I kind of felt the same thing that I promise I just laid down after lunch because I'm a pig. After I eat, I sleep. So I laid down literally just I feel like it's just like 5 minutes of me laying down just to stretch my back, and then boom, it's already 4 o'clock. So I lost literally 3 hours of my life, of my day on that. And it's not like you guys, when you take a nap, you feel energized, right? It's a nap. But now I felt like I just literally got drained. So when you normal people take naps like that, you should be able to feel more energized, right? But with that 5 minute nap that I had, which apparently was 3 hours, I am more drained. I felt like I kept on moving already by that time. Like I feel more tired. I feel more. I would rather take another 3 hour nap, kind of feeling. But literally, that's what I felt. I felt like I lost a couple of hours of my day. Like, where did it go? I knew that I just like I. It was just 5 minutes when I laid down. Apparently, it's already 3 hours.
Yeah, I would say if you even feel tired and like sleeping even more, I would say you have almost definitely been shifting dimensionary levels, actually. And just, I don't know where you went, but you because that's just the classical, because you're laying down, like you say, to rejuvenate or collect some energies, and you were actually losing energy and instead. And I have some nights of sleeping where I could just go right back to bed, and that's so typical for people shifting dimension and doing dimensional work. I mean, it would be interesting. Can you even remember what you dreamt, for instance?
Um, no, because there's no dream. Because literally, I felt like
Oh,
I just stretched my back. I closed my eyes, just breathe in, breathe out, and then I opened my eyes. It's already 4 o'clock. There goes my 3 hours. I just blinked, and there goes my 3 hours.
And this happened
yeah.
what, 3 days
Three
ago
three
after the
days
blood
ago.
moon. After the blood moon.
After the blood moon.
Yeah.
This to me is so creepy because this
Yes.
is exactly the kind of stuff that would happen when I was uh, working with that time spirit, and he would explain this stuff to me in exactly the same words that I'm hearing right now, with the shifting of dimensions and the being time, and just it's so eerily familiar. It's almost like I can hear him over my shoulder, just kind of look peeking in right now. It's
It's
really
Maria.
uncanny.
It's not that time. That's Maria
I'm so
telling it to
sorry, but
you.
because you were telling a story, Maria, and then I'm like, hey, that happened to me the other day. What? Hey, hold on. It's not just me that lost time, apparently.
Hmm. No, it's all humans actually, but some are not really capable of following it yet. Some will be following later on, and some are already following them. They're simply just not aware because they're cooped up in like work and read this book and whatever. And so, oh yeah, I lost a couple of hours, but that was probably just because I was so engaged in this book or whatever. They're trying to just explain it with something completely ordinary, seemingly. But people like us, I think we kind of just know better, right? We kind of know to take notice of this. Okay, that was weird. So I think we're probably more aware of when weird kind of stuff is going on. So yeah, that's just, it's so typical. And time spirit, I think it's so interesting because it kind of make it seem like me to like this time spirit, whatever, is what Jamie more like trying to tell you about the different.
We lost Maria again. Maria, come back. It's just so weird that I feel like there's that. Hopefully, it's not just me that that
Yes,
has
that's
that,
true, and it's across the world.
because it's like, what? Wait, hold on. I thought that it was just me. Then apparently Maria experienced it as well.
And I mean, the common denominator is sensitives have been feeling it. Well, not all. I mean, Jamie hasn't actually felt something like that right now, but
Or
the past few
maybe
days.
Jamie, already it happened already to you, but you just didn't notice. Just like Maria was saying that you just we
You're
you
too busy
went,
with
yeah, yeah, with you were doing something.
I'm so sorry. Seriously, I've never had so many issues with. This is extraordinary, actually.
yeah. The entities don't want you to tell us
Or
the
they're
things you
messing
know.
around too
Yeah,
much, perhaps. Where's that electricity guy or whatever?
yeah,
What's going on?
yeah.
I've never had that many issues. Oh, so where were we? Oh, yeah, I was just being curious about this. The
Time
time
entity.
spirit.
Yeah.
Jamie, what is that relating to you per se?
In what way?
Like, is it showing you things, or is it like telling you specific kind of stuff? Or I'm just curious because it sounds like maybe it's actually trying to tell you something that's real.
Well, it definitely was. It used to it. I kind of broke contact with it when I broke up with my ex-boyfriend, because that was the one that was all the. But what it used to do, he would channel for me. He would kind of be. Like I said, at first he really didn't like me. He literally just sucked the air right out of the air when I first met him, and he wasn't there for me originally, and he was like, well, what's this thing right here, and he just sucked the air right out. But eventually he kind of warmed up, and he can be very he could be very strict in things. He wanted things a certain way, but he would kind of try and show me images and try and explain stuff about time, about different dimensions, about the certain effects of things that are happening in a way grander scheme, and how that kind of affects Earth in these little ways that we have trouble understanding. How you can sometimes slip into a parallel time stream if you aren't careful with your if you kind of you can sometimes kind of slip in and out of time streams as well. And he wanted to teach how to control it, how to kind of try and help. He wanted to help us bend it in a certain direction. And he in a way he was kind of like a nature spirit, but just of a different kind of nature. I don't quite know how to describe. He always felt more like a nature spirit to me, but just on such a grand scale. And he like I said before, he did kind of wear that grim reaperish costume, but he as he explained, he says, I have no physical form, and this is kind of my way of being something to you that you can relate to, that you can interpret. So he was definitely very interesting, and I don't know if he still is near me, because like I said, when like my yeah, well, this might be a bit too much negativity again. So pardon me if that's the case. But my eventually me and my ex-boyfriend broke up because it was kind of an abusive relationship. And so with that, he was really, really into spirituality, and he was very sensitive. So he would constantly be asking me to channel, to be this, to help interpret what the time spirit was saying, what ghosts were saying around us, what demons, angels, anything that came past us, he wanted me to translate. So I was constantly not myself anymore. And that's the reason that for a very long time I cut all ties with both spirituality and, well, I cut ties with him as well. And so this, I've slowly been easing my way back into things a bit, because I've been very hesitant, because I kind of associate it now with that abusive relationship. And that's why I'm even in this conversation I've had a couple of times that I'm kind of wanting to back up from it. They're kind of like, whoa, like, oh, this is a lot to take in. But at the same time, what you were saying about these time slips and stuff, this is exactly what I've talked with the time spirit, and he used to show me, like, from an above view, how it kind of works, and how you're just going through the stream of time, how you're just floating along it, and how it can sometimes have hitches, and how you can get skipped over or be pushed forward, and how actually people meeting is just these tiny motes of soul bumping into each other in the time stream to him. And that this huge entity that kind of looked down at time, at three-dimensional time as we know it, as this complex thing. And he was just like, you've simplified it very much, but basically this is what's going on. He would so very interesting. So actually having this conversation, it's reminding me so much of it. Now, even though I completely closed myself off from it, and I was like, oh, I never want to talk to the time spirit again. I never want to talk to anything ever again, because I associated it so much with that abuse that I went through. It's right now, it just feels like it's so familiar that it's like, well, I know that it was true. Because those things that even though I've turned my back on it, it's exactly what I'm hearing right now. Is that so interesting to me?
I'm so sorry, Jamie. We're very sorry
Yeah, we're sorry for having
for
brought
reminding
up
you.
brought up emotions that you probably don't want to feel
No,
again.
no worries. I mean, it's my I said I wanted to do this, and I mean it, because I'm also just very interested in this stuff as well. So it's more that it's that's also what I was talking about with the synchronicities, is that all of a
Yes.
sudden it's like my spirit guides are trying to shout at me, like, this is something you have to deal with, that you have to pick up again, because I've constantly been seeing. Actually, I live very close by to where I used to live with that ex-boyfriend,
Yeah.
and I actually ran into, or I actually saw him walk by my window the other day, and I've been seeing his name everywhere and that kind of stuff. So for me, it's very painful, because I have to, like, deal with those issues, but at the same time, it's like my spirit guides are kind of like forcing me into this path. Like, it's time, especially with this conversation as well. It all feels very synchronous. It has a lot of synchronicities in it, and a lot of interesting knots. Everything's tied together, and I'm starting to see that a bit more again, because I used to have it a lot, and I definitely pushed it away deliberately. So it's interesting,
Yes.
to say the least.
This is really an eye opener for us. Well, me and Sam, because this is the first time I've heard of this entity, an entity who you could say is a master of time, or this elemental that controls or sees where time streams are going to.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen that particular entity, and I know that there are entities and beings that can see and do this, but I haven't encountered anyone myself. But I find it very interesting that it's talking about streams, and I'm always calling it flows, because I see it like some kind of almost watery energy kind
Yeah,
of
that's
flow moving like that.
that's what he shows me as well.
And just like a river, it can branch out a bit here and there. That is like possible future outcomes that doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily happen, but they are branching out in case we should choose to do like cause, action, and consequence that turns out to maybe go into that fork. So yeah, it seems so very similar. It really does.
yeah, that to me was
Yeah.
so striking as well. I heard you say this stuff, and I was like, oh my god, I'm literally back in my old room, just seeing what the time spirit was showing me.
So he was saying you could manipulate it or move around it, or
Yes, and he would kind of he didn't want to interfere too much because he was like, well, this is I'm a watcher over it. I'm a guardian of it. I'm not I don't manipulate time streams because all he could kind of do sometimes was shift me and other people from one timeline, kind of push them over the modes.
Hmm.
mm,
Yeah, a little nudge to the right direction. But I hope, though, I really do hope that with what's happening right now for you, Jamie, is I think what is lacking with your previous relationship was that um I remember, Jamie, remember, Maria, when you said about, like, the righteous anger,
Hmm.
that you need to, if you were in that kind of relationship with the time spirit, that what you could have done is like be more assertive, so you'd have a better and harmonious relationship with the spirit, rather than him being you being just a medium for him, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
my spirit guide Sarah, she was uh when you said about the big entities and that they kind of got startled by this one person, that's what Sarah kind of did to him, because the second that she felt that he went too far with me, because I'm by nature a very compliance relaxed person in this kind of stuff. I'm very easy at just kind of be like surrendering to stuff, not in a way that I'm weak-willed or anything, but just that I'm very comfortable in just kind of letting things go, because I know that I can always get back control if I need to. um but if Sarah felt that he went too far, especially in a time that I was becoming less and less like myself because I was constantly channeling others, so I was constantly pushed to the background. Eventually, she had enough, and uh, she would just fly off the handle at him. She just or it rather, because it wasn't really gendered, but and she would just kind of fly off the handle, and she would just be absolutely furious, and it would kind of be like, oh, okay, well, I guess that you're having some peace right now. You could have just said. You didn't
yes,
have to be all all mad about it, but so that's kind of funny. It's very difficult to describe because a lot of it was based on just this sense,
yeah,
and it was very shapeless. It was just this big entity that I can kind of feel looming behind me when he wanted to channel through me. So or show me these pictures and images. I still have drawings of them somewhere. Then I could also show you the images of what I see around people. 'cause I edit photos to kind of look like it's to what I see.
Have you seen this game? I mean, you're like me. You're a geek, I think.
Yeah.
But have you seen this game? Life is Strange. There's a new game, Life is Strange, where this girl, the main character, it's not. It hasn't come out yet. Where the main character can see auras around people, and It's a murder mystery, I think. Life is Strange. I'll send it to you. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
Wow.
A synchronicity again.
Yes.
Okay. That explains it.
Huge synchronicity.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it's very. I'd love to see. If I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, look it up. It's a new game. I'm not sure, but it's Life is Strange, I think, where it's a role playing game. Ah, or something like it.
Jamie, I was actually remember John. What's his name again? Mentioned yesterday about him seeing like not aura, but more so of just like
Ah, yes.
a filter of something around people.
Ah, yeah. So Jamie, the person we talked to, I think a few days ago, he said there was this one time he was just standing in because they have this Tagalog tuloy ako. They have this army training in Canada. So part of the training was they were just standing in a big area, and suddenly, just because maybe he was just standing and doing nothing, he could see outlines around people, but they were not colored. So he couldn't explain what it was, but he could literally see a faint outline around people. So I'm not sure if for you it's real color, right? If I'm not
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. It's real color, and I've heard people that can see morphic fields on some occasions.
What are morphic fields? Sorry.
Morphic fields is basically what they call like a hive mind. It's kind of, I'm not sure if that's the right word. I think you know what it is, Maria.
Well, trying to explain it, I think I know what it is, but I think I have my own words for it somehow. So just go ahead and explain. Yeah.
So basically, there's this scientific phenomenon that it's kind of pseudoscience, but a lot of this stuff would fall under that anyway. So what they see, what they've observed around the world is that there's this energy field that connects people, and it's like it comes off people. Like it's what scientists believe an aura is. There's this energy that comes off people, and it kind of connects to this larger energy field that is all around the world. And so what they see is that if certain groups of people will experience something, it will translate into a common knowledge around the world. So what they saw it with is they've actually, I know of 3 different experiments. One was with where they saw that rats that had been exposed to a lot of poison, a certain type of poison, became immune. And even though other rats had never been exposed to that poison and were not in contact with any of the other rats across the world, they also became immune to the poison. So that's kind of like this collective. The same thing has happened with monkeys and being taught a certain trick. And the last one was where students were given an assignment and they were asked to find words in a page, certain words, and it was really, really difficult. And then afterwards, the students would be told where the words were. And then, so they did this a couple of times, and then they went to a completely new location, and this was a completely sealed test. And every single time that they went somewhere new, people would find the words quicker, even though there was no real reason for it, because it was just as hard. These people weren't necessarily smart or anything. There was just this sudden sense of, oh wait, I think that's where a word is, and that's where the words were. So that's kind of this. That's what they describe as morphic fields. The same was actually it's being measured in a number generator, in a random number generator, and they could actually see that before the twin towers were hit, they saw a shift in the morphic fields. And the same with assassinations. Like if something big happens, they can sense a shift in the morphic fields through these computers and random number generators. But so certain people are said to be able to see these morphic fields around people on occasion, especially if there's a certain density of energy in the air or a certain electromagnetic fields around certain people will be able to see this. What scientists believe that's what an aura is.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
necessarily agree with that,
Yes,
but
yes. I mean,
that,
you're the expert on that. You could actually experience it compared to other people.
yeah.
Well, usually I call it I just call it the collective mind,
Oh,
or
yes.
the joint collective mind. I don't necessarily see it that if something specific is happening within it, it sometimes gives me images that comes in all of a sudden. But I don't specifically see the field, but I can just feel that it's there. There's like a deeper part of my mind. I'm aware that it's also connecting with that. So I'm just calling it the collective mind. Also, I have found out that we have a collective mind that seems more aware. And then we also have one for our subconscious stuff that we are unaware of or have even suppressed. Some people are actually sharing that as well. There seems to be a pattern to me that if, like for instance, people that have been abused for some reason, they are kind of sharing a subconscious mind collective of some kind. People that are perhaps grieving also have like a shared something. And if an ability person, if one tries to like sense or like go into that, then you can see kind of this collective energy, something world or whatever like going on, and then you can start to like notice the individuals. Okay, so this lady, whatever it is, she's grieving that man here, he's grieving that, it's like what I see is like they are kind of like running around in that field,
Yes,
something,
yes.
whatever, and like replaying what is bothering them. So if they're grieving, for instance, for the loss that someone died, oh, my arm, I see them kind of like running around in that field and repeating the whole, reliving, oh, I saw my loved one die, kind of whatever, and reliving and feeling all that, oh no, and stuff. I see them like moving around in that. And recently, it has been happening more or less spontaneously. That some of them has actually been screaming for me, and I just hear the scream, and it's like an alarm, and I instantly am like, I gotta go there. So like, I'm just moving my point of perception to that person, and then I can connect in such a way that I'm like I'm in them, but I'm not them.
Yes.
And so I am reliving that that terrible whatever thing that they have suppressed in their subconscious with them. And I'm also like seeing what do they look like now and stuff. And once I succeeded in actually finding the actual living human person that it was, that has screamed and showed and relived all of that with me. And that of course gave me the chance of trying to be there for the person about the subject, and trying to hopefully like dissolving some of the suppressed emotions and stuff like that about it. He's still working on it for like 2 or 3 months now. He's still trying to go through that process. But to me, it was like, well, now that Jamie is saying this, it more kind of like makes sense to me that it must be some kind of quantum level field or something like within the dimensional level, because if people that have sort of similar issues or similar positive experience, it could also be positive awareness, of course, they seem to be in those same fields somehow. I find it very interesting. So have you experienced anything perhaps like that, Jamie? Or
Yes, I definitely can relate to that as well, because to me, I've also had this kind of stuff where you can kind of, but for me, it's usually when I'm doing one-on-one healings with people, what I
yeah.
used to do,
Mhm.
because I remember when I was actively doing it as a job,
Oh,
because
okay.
I quit.
Mhm.
But what would happen is I would see this sadness around people, because I see emotions hanging around people as in those colors that I see. I see emotions hanging there. So what sometimes happens is what they ask of you to do, what they ask you to do with Reiki, is they say, well, you kind of help mold it and release it. You kind of take it, you can grab it, you shape it, and you let them get rid of it that way. But what would happen is I would touch it with my own energy, and I would start crying, and I would say stuff out of nowhere that people just brought people to tears, and we would be crying together, or like, or anger, or certain emotions. Because there was this one woman. It's a really interesting story. I mean, again, this based on what you believe, this is very subjective. I don't necessarily believe that it happened the way that certain people interpret it to it happens. But there was this woman, and she was having real trouble with childbearing. She really wanted to get pregnant, and she'd been trying for years. And they were she wanted to get pregnant, and she couldn't, and she was seeing doctors, and they couldn't find anything wrong, and they had been to psychologists and talked about it, maybe it's stress, and nothing really worked. And then I saw something, an emotion tucked in near her womb, and I pressed on, and I grabbed it, and I said, oh, I feel this crippling sensation of loneliness, of being cold. And then all of a sudden she remembered, and she said, when I was a baby, I was very sick, and I had to
Incubated
be
or
uh, I don't know the word.
yeah, she was tied to machines.
Yeah,
She was tied to
yeah, she
machines.
had,
Yeah.
and she was on intensive care, and she was
Yeah.
in one of these when she was just a baby, and so no one was allowed to touch her or be near her. And she still remembered, in that moment, she still remembered feeling so lonely and so scared. And then she said, like, I'm scared that what happened to me will happen to my child, and that they will be lonely and scared. And shortly after that, like, we dealt with it, and we both felt these emotions, and we were both crying next to each other for no reason, on my end, of course. And
Yes.
yeah, shortly after that, she got pregnant. So there are some people that actually were like, oh, you helped her get pregnant because you helped her deal with that trauma that was poisoning her chance of
Mm-mm.
having kids. And I've had the same with someone who had stomach troubles, and then I grabbed onto that spot where I saw the problem, And I said, "You're really anxious about stuff," and that she just felt all this pressure from the news and all the negativity in the world, and that she was just really, really affected by it. And that, we. So I have that. I've also had a friend that that was really weird because I was at a party, and she said, "Oh, I hear you have this interesting ability. What do you see with me?" And she was this very big, bubbly person. She's just very energetic, and she's always just so friendly and funny and nice, and always kind of either smiling or being like really kind of badass in a way.
Yeah.
And I said, I see this immense sadness around your dad. And it turned out that her dad had died, and that her family had then uh, broken up, and that she wasn't in contact with her family anymore, and that she felt this immense grief, and she started crying in the middle of a party. And I was like, oh no.
She asked for it.
Well, I didn't mean to do anything.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I've had certain experiences with that as well. It's kind of you move into their perspective, because it feels to me like I'm the one being lonely and sad, and in reality it's not me, it's them.
It's them, yeah. But do you carry that? Do you eventually have to release it? How do you let go of the emotion?
Well, once we've dealt through it, that's one way. Or I can, like I said, I'm really good at relaxing into stuff and then stepping back out if I need to, which is something that oftentimes I won't do, because I if I have reasons to suspect that it's needed that I'm that way, I will give space. I will be the one that sacrifices themselves. Not that that's a good thing. I'm working on it, but
Yeah.
it's it's because I see how much people sometimes need space, because I can physically see it around them, how
Yes.
much they need
Yes.
space, how much they need certain things, that I'm like, you know what? I don't need it as much. So why not give someone that space? I don't need it as much as they do. I can clearly see that in their auras or whatever I see. I can clearly see their pain, see their things. So why would I be the one to be like, oh no, I want space too, when I'm not someone that needs as much. But so that's also why I was very easy stepping in and out of other people's problems, because I kind of just moved away from it. But it does have the unfortunate side effect that some people will walk over you.
Yes. When you knew that you would help them deal with these things.
Yes, some people will need so much that I'll be like, well, I can't give this to you. This is too much for me to give. But then that they'll feel like you let them down, or they'll get very manipulative, and that's just something that I'm learning to deal with, because it's something that is my inherent weakness. Is giving too much space, because I'm so okay with giving space when it's needed. It allows certain people to take too much space that they don't deserve.
Yes, that's true. Actually, one of your questions, I just remembered one of your questions was if, based on our conversations, one of our findings is if it's hereditary. So, based on Maria's story, all of her children have it. It is hereditary. The abilities, yeah. Because what Jamie asked us when we talked to her before, she asked us if it's hereditary, and because her dad had different abilities and her mom had different abilities. Your mom's abilities were very similar to Uri Geller's. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, where he can bend spoons,
Yeah, we
and he was able. Yeah,
we actually have. I think my mom sent me a picture not that long ago of the spoon.
yeah. Her mom could when her mom gets angry, she bends spoons.
Yeah, my mom has very strong, what I call, sending powers. so she can that energy that I see around people, they can kind of push it out if they need to. And my mom is really, really good at it. So one time she even gave my dad a migraine because they were playing around with the energy. She's Buddhistic, so she meditates a lot, and she is very good at keeping her emotions level, but she didn't always she wasn't always that good at it. And sometimes still, like this
Mm.
thing with the spoon happened not that long ago. She was just holding the spoon, and she just stirred her tea with it, and she held out the spoon, and she just said, she was really mad at someone, and she said, if I have to talk to them, I'm going to get really upset. And all of us just stopped in on our tracks because we saw the spoon. And like even my mum, like she was in the middle of a sentence, she was like, and we were all just like, are we all seeing that spoon bend? And we like, yeah. And it just, even after we were all forgotten that's one thing that does happen every time something like that happens with my mum. That something will, like, she had a glass shatter when she held it. She was holding a mug, and it just shattered, and she was only holding the air. Every time that happens, when she's really upset, it does always end the argument.
That's the good thing.
No one just even she can be so upset, but she'll just kind of be stunned into silence at that moment. And so will everyone else. So that's just it always ends arguments. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it kind of shouldn't, but I mean, what can you do? I mean, yeah, I think it's hard sometimes to contain that power, because sometimes we're just like, and
Yeah,
things are just like,
exactly. It's always when she's really not in control of her emotions that it happens.
yeah.
But yeah, my dad has very different abilities. He's had prophetic dreams and out of body experiences, and he's seen ghosts, and he's remembered past lives. And so that's one side. And then my mum is just very good at knowing stuff. She'll intuitively know things, like there was a car ahead of her, and she had to travel from one side to Holland to the other. And when she left, there was a car, I think the first street that she rode out, and she was like, he's going the same place I am. And it was a town on the other side of the Netherlands, and that car stayed in front of her until a few streets until she reached her destination, more of an hour's drive, and that car just kept being in front of her. And my sister has, so me and my sister both have kind of bits and bobs from both our parents that we, like, I'm not very good at the sending stuff as my mum is, but I do have the kind of knowing stuff, like, oh, that car is going, or and I have my dad's prophetic dreams and out of body experience stuff as well. I think I've got most of my dad's abilities. Like my mum, not as much, but she is scary strong. Honestly,
When
it
angry.
even when happy, she could just be such a force to be reckoned with. A lot of people used to get really intimidated by her and just be like, wow, you're so much as a person. Because when she was happy, she is happy, and she fills the room with her energy, and
And,
she is
and you
such a
feel that
strong.
too. You feel that
Yeah, I feel
happiness
that
also.
too.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of used to it, but to this day, she's nowhere near as powerful as she was, because she has a heart condition, and she meditates a lot, and she's really tries to keep her energy down. And even now, I'll have people say to me, like, oh, your mum is so intense to be around. I'm like, I don't even notice. This is nothing compared to what she was when I was a kid. When she'd get angry, it would feel like her energy was slamming into me, and I would just literally take a step back. It felt like walking into a wall. If I got too close, it would be like, oh.
That is so amazing. I'm actually usually calling people like that fire starters. Because that seems to me like their personality just in general, like you said, whatever they're happy or angry or frustrated or whatever, it's like they could just initiate like something like boom, and then you can feel it in the room. And yeah, that's just so funny. Well, at least I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I have such weird experiences with that kind of stuff as well. Literally, I can go into the most boring place, and after half an hour, we're just having a party. Everyone, it's just it's really weird sometimes.
Some people just have that about them, that energy.
Yeah, and it's weird. And sometimes, when stuff gets physical, it's even more weird. Like me frustrating about something. Usually it's technical stuff and I can't get to work or something silly like that. I'm just like, oh, it's so silly, it should be working. And like whoosh, and then a book or two are just flying off the shelf or whatever. It's just yeah, I'm not dwelled too much into that. I'm trying to the last 6-10 months or so. I'm trying to see if I can like gently give into that, but I have been so cautious with that because I have actually caused trouble with that kind of stuff, like breaking stuff and sending stuff flying. And
And that's why my mom always focuses on calm.
yeah, and well, maybe I should try and look into the more Buddhistic kind of stuff like she's doing or something. I don't know, because sometimes I'm literally worried about what can actually happen if I'm losing it for some reason. Maybe I should try to just hold a spoon and see if I can if I can only put it into the spoon and not everything else.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you should do. Maybe that's what your mom, Jamie, that I think that's what your mom always have to do. Always hold a spoon or anything metallic. So
I'm
at least
channeling the
nothing's
truth
gonna
there.
fly.
Just waving a spoon at people.
Yeah.
Don't make me bend this.
Yeah, right. So no one's gonna get hurt. Only the spoon.
Yeah.
And from now on, metallic mugs, no glasses.
Definitely. I think it was a ceramic mug as well. But yeah, I was kind of reminded of something because we actually talked about this with my mum because I was on holiday with her a couple of days ago, and we actually talked about this stuff. And we also had another shared experience that I think is really cool because it's kind of like a really positive, surreal one. Maybe it's a nice note. I'm wondering if you've ever experienced anything like that as well. It's so we were driving on this road in the middle of the night with just a whole family, and we were coming back from family friends, and there was this thick fog just all of a sudden descended on us just when we left that town. And so we were just following the signs, and eventually there's this turn in the road where you go from one highway to another, or one freeway. So it's just a bend, and it goes down, and it continues underneath, and then goes in a different direction. So there's no real reason to kind of do anything. No real way to do anything strange there. I've been on that road hundreds of times, hundreds. But that night we drove and we took that exit, and all of a sudden we were driving back towards the town that we came from. We were on the other side of the road, driving back into the town that we came from. Okay, so we were, the first time we were like, oh, this is weird. We must have taken a wrong turn. So we turn around and we go a second time, and we follow the signs. We're following the signs: Rotterdam, 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 and all of a sudden it just goes back to that town that we came from. And we were like, what on earth is happening? And we were like, should we do, like? It's like we can't leave. Maybe we should just. And they actually offered us to stay over. Those people, this family friends. We were like, maybe we should have taken them up on it, but no. We want to go home, so we went the third time, and we came straight back. And then after that, we just drove again, and nothing happened. We were just on our way to Rotterdam. And to this day, we don't know what that was, but it feels almost like angelic intervention or time shifting or plane shifting, or I have no idea. But it was that weird fake fog that kind of made it even more intense. That we have no idea how we changed roads.
Yes, yes, yes.
Because we could only see a small strip of road in front of us and the signs ahead of us, and we kept following Rotterdam, 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 and all of a sudden we were like, these signs aren't right. They go back to where we came
Yeah.
from. And then we kept driving, and all of a sudden all the fog cleared, and we were back in that town that we
Yeah.
had just driven
You
out
came
of,
from.
and it
Yeah.
happened a few times.
That is amazing.
So we still don't know what that was.
Remember that I
Yes.
mentioned this to you. That I have the
Yes.
same
He had the same
experience.
experience here in
Yeah.
the Philippines.
So we were going from one small town to another town. No, this is not a highway or anything. This is a rough road going up the mountain. But so so I've been there a couple of times already. The travel from the town that we are in to the next town is more likely 45 minutes worth of drive. Okay. And then what happened was there was three cars. My ride was in the middle. There's one in the front and one in our back. So we were driving, and the only I know for a fact that there's how do you call it, a signage, a big clamshell signage of like welcome to this city. Okay, so I know that that's going to be there, but in our travel it took us at least like 2-3 hours, and I've been seeing the clamshell uh, like 3-4 times already. I'm like, hold on, are we what is happening here, what is going on? But
So
here in the
this is
Philippines,
daytime, right, Sam? This is
yes,
daytime.
this is literally daytime, so there's no way in hell that we're gonna get. And again, there's no other way, there's only one
Yeah,
way,
it's just one road.
a big road. Yeah, going up to the mountain. I mean, it's not like there's a branch of road going back or anything. Not unless we want to get off of the cliff and then probably just die. But that's because that's the only option. If
Yeah,
you
yeah.
turn hard right, you're gonna literally fall off a cliff. So there's no way.
So logically, there was no other way for them to
Be looping, but you were looping.
get lost because it's just one. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
one road.
But here in the Philippines, we have like this mythical creature that looks like half horse,
Horse
half human.
man. Yeah. But
That
here, you've heard of centaurs, right? Here, it's technical and elemental. It's a mountain elemental. Tama? Is that right, Sam?
yes, yep,
It's a mountain elemental, and it's here. A centaur is half horse downwards, right? And the body is human, and the head is human. Here, the head is a horse, and the body is all human. That's how the some ability people see it. Yeah. So go
yeah.
ahead, Sam.
So here, so here the that mythical creature, we call them tikbalang. We yeah we the notion is that if ever that you got caught in that time loop, if apparently was to take off your current clothing, turn it upside, I mean turn it around,
Flip it around. Flip it
yeah,
around.
flip it, and then try to there's this like it's like asking permission, yeah, asking permission to, can we please pass, something like that. And then after literally after 5 minutes of driving, we're on our destination.
But you did. You changed. You did that to your clothes, right? Am
Yeah,
I
we
correct?
did. We switched our
Yes.
clothes, and then
Seems like a
so I
wise call.
I spoke to the guys. I'm like, what happened? So apparently the car in front of us um has, because it's like it's the 90s, so the louder your car music is, the better. And then again, we are teenagers here, so they've been throwing beer cans and garbage while we were driving through it. So my deduction was that the tikbalang got pissed of what you are doing, and there we go. We ended in a time loop.
So there's another story. I'm not sure who told it, but of same incident, but while people were going up a mountain, because there
That's
were
me as well.
that's you also. Okay. Another experience from you. So apparently these experiences we related to these elementals, these mountain elementals. Jamie, I mean, you've seen three elementals, and I'm pretty sure mountain elementals, and they're very protective of nature here. So Sam would probably say it the same way, that they did something. You threw something in the. Sige, Sam, go ahead. Your story's a mountain.
Yeah. So we were climbing the mountain. This is something that I personally do before when I was still healthy. So this is we have a group. So we divided our group into two. So for I'm a part of the first group, and then there's a second group. Like there's only like 10-20 minutes difference from the time that we climbed the mountain. We reached the summit already of the mountain. We are already expecting them to be there in like 30 minutes. So we were sitting there, and then they passed in front of us, but they didn't see us. And okay, so I'm like, okay, whatever, what's happening here? And then after like another 30 minutes, they passed again in front of us as if they didn't see us again. I'm like, okay, hold on, hold on, hold on. And then the last minute, the third time that they passed by, I grabbed the person because they're already in a loop. And then they told me that we've been trekking for 3 hours already. I'm like, well, there you go.
And what did they do? I think they threw stuff in the
Yeah,
mountain.
the same thing. Because this mountain, and when I was still, very active in the supernatural, this is something that we, how do you call that? It's something
A mystic mountain.
spiritual.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a mystic mountain.
the mountain is, for me, was mystical, because every time that I go there, I feel more calm and stuff like that. So that's what I do. So they threw things. They were
Disrespectful
leaving.
for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
nature.
They were
Yeah.
not. They were really not respecting the mountain. I guess that's the reason why the mountain taught them a lesson.
So that brings me to my question, Jamie. What did you do before you left that town for them to try to?
Well, we don't know. What we do know is that we always said like maybe it was kind of an intervention, because by the time we got to Rotterdam, there was actually a car chase had taken place just ahead of us,
Mm,
where a criminal was fleeing from police, and he'd had a car chase through that section where we were driving.
yeah.
So we were like, well, maybe that's why we were delayed, so that we wouldn't be in front of this car.
Yes. Yes.
So we saw it kind of as a sign of good fortune.
It
That's
probably is.
nice.
So it's different for us here.
But I do think it's very good. I do think that people should experience that a bit more often. What Sam experienced. I think people, if you're that disrespectful to nature, I think you deserve to kind of be going around in circles for a bit.
But I'm not a part of the people that threw around it. I got
But I
stuck.
know. But obviously, I mean, if you were in the same group of cars,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
they can't be that specific. Like, oh, this one person is getting. How is that even gonna
Everyone,
work?
this whole group.
Just you floating to the city, like the car's still around. Their
Yeah.
car being that wouldn't work. So unfortunately, you have to get rid of the group to kind of teach one a lesson, or several lessons.
Oh, I actually have a question for Maria.
Mhm.
Yeah. Remember I mentioned this to you before we started,
Yes.
because so the 26th, we had a blood moon, right? And then just today we had a solar, how do you call that?
Halo, solar halo.
Yeah, solar halo today, which
Mhm.
is like, okay, this is way too much of a coincidence of getting a blood moon, and yeah.
Uh,
So what do you think that is, Maria?
well, I'm just thinking, yes, of course you saw that. You know, that's kind of how I'm going. Because so many things, when we start to get more and more used to being in the fourth dimension, those who are like coming into it, they are also start to experiencing things differently, because all of a sudden we're experiencing more of what is actually there, kind of meaning that we have like seen the same tree perhaps like 1,000 times because we pass it every day or something like that, and all of a sudden we're like, is that the same tree? Why is it doing that? It looks like it's vibrating or whatever, you know. Or it could be the sun, like the sun has a halo, like does it usually have that? It could be we're so used to believing that physically stuff has to look in a specific way, but they might not be looking like that actually. It's just that now we're starting to notice, because it's not just us moving into fourth dimension, it's the planet. So it will get more and more like all physical. So I mean, who knows, there could even be two suns and we're just not aware, you know.
Actually, there's people that believe that, yeah, that there's a second sun.
Yeah.
But for Sam, if you're interested, there's this website called spaceweather.com,
Mhm.
and you can kind of track interesting phenomenon from the sun as well. And what you'll notice, that any time that there's a rise in certain graphs, that you'll feel it.
Like the Schumann frequency.
Yeah, you can feel the frequencies of, because the planet reacts to the actual battering of the sun particles on Earth, and that reaction actually triggers, for sensitive people, actually triggers a whole bunch of abilities, sensitivities, the feeling of things vibrating around you, things being so if you're interested, that might be something to check up on once in a while and see if you see anything
What's the
interesting.
website again?
Spaceweather.com.
Spaceweather.com. Okay, great. Let me put that on my notes.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think Jamie is absolutely right. It will be a lot easier for you if you're noticing something that seems like, okay, it's somewhat out of the ordinary, then you can go check there. That's a really good idea. I do that a lot of the time myself. Usually when the sun flares, I get skin rashes like that out of nowhere. Just yeah, so there's many different ways that we can react actually. And so it's good to have something like that and look into like, oh, okay, well, that's probably why, you know, it's like, it makes sense then. Mm.
Great. I'm gonna visit that website later on.
We'll advise sensitive people who listen to our podcast to listen to it as well. Thank you, ladies, and thank you for so much for sharing again.
Thank you.
This is so, the time spirit really shocked us. I mean, it was really eye opening for us to know that there's an entity that is overseeing it.
Yeah, I will definitely be trying to see if I could get into contact with such a entity or whatever to call it. You know, definitely. That sounds interesting. Mm.
It was pretty intense though. So.
Just a
Yeah.
warning, it was pretty intense. Thank you
Okay.
again, Maria. Thank you, Jamie. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you again to our guests, Maria and Jamie, and of course, Sam and Liz, who were in the call as well. This was definitely an eye-opener for me. The fact that there are entities out there guarding the fabric of time. I had to backtrack on the day this was recorded just to make sure that our stories weren't influenced by the Loki TV series. But this was recorded May 29, a good week before the TV series premiered. But the timing was uncanny. I also tried to check if Jamie had mentioned it in her previous interview, and yes, she did. She mentioned channeling an entity that told her aspects about time. So, for those of you who have enough time to look into it, yeah, try to find the exact time code and you'll see it there. Maybe you want to share it with us. I was not able to catch that actually in our previous conversation, but yes, she did mention that. If you haven't listened to Maria and Jamie's episodes yet, I'll put the links down below in the show notes. So who is the time spirit? Is he like the watcher? So many questions, but I guess we will just have to wait until someone has a clearer answer or perhaps experienced with them to tell us more about this entity. What are your thoughts? Have you experienced the time spirit? Heard of it? Someone share it to you? Share your theories with us at paranormalsph@gmail.com. If you want a deeper discussion, we can all talk it over on the Discord channel. Links also in the show notes. The more we learn about the paranormal, the more questions we have. The Paranormal Podcast is engineered and produced by F90 Productions. If you have the time, please again rate and review our show on whatever podcast platform you follow. As always, thank you all for listening and please stay safe.